Hey everyone, this is Alex Stevenson from Ninja Teacher, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the latest updates from Vietnam, including Vietnam removing the required hotel quarantine on arrival in Vietnam, replacing it with a 3-day home isolation, as well as international flights to Vietnam resuming from the 1st of January from certain locations. Now, this isn't a total reopening. There are still only very limited package tours, but we're going to get into that in this video, so stay tuned. And I'm here in Hoi An for the day at this cool little French coffee shop right by the river here. Might go down to the beach and actually spend the night in Hoi An. Okay, I'm here at the villa I'm staying at for tonight, and the first big piece of news is that Vietnam has now agreed to remove hotel quarantine on arrival, and this is red stamped, which means it's official. If you watched a previous video of mine, don't believe any news until you see the actual official documents that are red stamped, because there's all these proposals and propositions and plans, but when it actually is official, then you see the official red stamped document. So this is really good news, because the hotel quarantines, if you know, it was 7 days of hotel quarantine required, and they aren't just normal hotels, they're expensive hotels, so that could be, you know, up to $2,000 for that 7-day stay quarantine on arrival. And this has been replaced by a 3-day home quarantine, which means you can actually do it at your home if you live in Vietnam, or at any hotel if you're just arriving in Vietnam for the first time, which means you can get a $15 per night hotel or $30 per night hotel, so it makes it considerably cheaper. There's obviously going to be some testing, you have to get PCR tested during that time, but this is a huge improvement, and that is official as of right now. Then the other big piece of news is that commercial flights to Vietnam are resuming on the 1st of January from certain destinations, including the US, San Francisco and Los Angeles. And we're getting regular flights from other destinations such as Bangkok, Beijing, Phnom Penh, San Francisco, I said that, and Los Angeles, Singapore, Taipei, Tokyo, and Vientiane. And then on the 16th of January, there'll be more locations added, including Frankfurt, Germany, Hong Kong, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Moscow, Paris, and Sydney, Australia. And the reason this is good news is because there haven't actually been commercial flights going back and forward to Vietnam for a long time now. It's been charter flights for returnees, experts and professionals needing to get into the country. But the fact that they're starting to resume these flights back and forward, that is a really good sign. Now, before you get too excited, there are restrictions in place. There still aren't visas being issued, general tourist visas. What is possible right now is these very limited package tours, which you have to book through a travel agent. And since I mentioned that in my last update video, I've heard of prices, you know, $5,000, $6,000 for these short tours, staying in these 5-star hotels. So they're very limited. You can't travel around freely. So it's just a first step, basically. This is only for people who are, you know, desperate to get back to Vietnam. There are maybe some people who just really love Vietnam and are willing to kind of do a package tour like that. But most of the people, from what I've heard, are actually people coming to see family that do have that extra money, and then they get special permission after the tour to go and see family. But you're restricted, you can't go to certain places, and it's only been arriving in certain places like here in Da Nang, Hoi An, Phu Quoc, Nha Trang, and a couple of other tourist destinations. So when will they allow people just to get a normal tourist visa and arrive in the country and then move around freely? No one knows just yet. There are, again, just proposals and plans. I've heard some talk of April, of June. We don't know. It's not official until it's official in Vietnam. Now, for anyone that wants to come and live and work in Vietnam, I thought I would explain this a little bit better, especially for teaching English jobs, because a lot of people ask us this. Well, I've heard that you can get in as a foreign expert. And while that's technically true, it's a difficult process, and there's a few reasons why it's difficult. The first one being that historically Vietnam never hired people from abroad anyway. So they would always hire teachers, or even if you're newly qualified or newly getting into teaching, you've just taken a TEFL certification, the way you got a job was you would arrive in the country and you'd go in and do in-person interviews with schools. You might have to do a demonstration class to show that you can teach a little bit, and then you get offered a job. So because of COVID, this wasn't possible anymore, and it still isn't, because you can't arrive on a tourist visa to do that. So the only way to get into the country is to have a school sponsor you beforehand, or if you're in some other field, is to come in as a highly skilled worker or an expert. So people have been calling it the expert process or something like that. And that requires special permission from the People's Committee. So it's a complicated process to get the paperwork. And again, schools and most companies are just not willing to hire people from abroad. It was just not something that companies did beforehand anyway. And then because it's even more complicated and difficult to get people and get that approval, and it's expensive and time consuming, takes a lot of HR, schools don't really know who they're hiring before they get to the country, and it's a big risk for them because it's a lot of investment to get someone here. Big companies that have some executive that they needed to get into the country, sure, they'll go through that process, but just a smaller English center, even the bigger English centers, not many of them were willing to do that or able to do that. And that's why for the last 5 years, when we helped people start teaching English, what we did was help them get to the country, set up in-person interviews for people, and then help them find a job. Either do your TEFL training course in the country or beforehand, but companies just typically don't hire teachers from abroad. But now we're getting much closer because without that expensive quarantine, that's one less cost for either the employee or the company. So if they do decide to hire someone from abroad and they can get that special permission to get you into the country, then at least it's going to be cheaper right now. So we might see a few more schools willing to start hiring people from abroad. Again, I think it's just going to be maybe 90% of schools won't be willing to do this as it has been. But as soon as this last change that is needed, as soon as they let people just get a tourist visa and arrive in the country with no restrictions on traveling around and what you do in the country, then we're going to get back to hiring as normal. And I know there's lots of schools here looking to hire teachers. As for schools actually reopening in-person classes, this has been slowly happening around the country. It depends on the city, it depends on which area of the city. For example, I think Ho Chi Minh City had 9th graders and 12th graders go back to school recently. Da Nang opened up schools again for like 2 weeks and then they shut them down again. It seems to be going back and forward a bit. So we're going to slowly start seeing more and more schools opening, but schools have got pretty used to hiring teachers and then having them go back and forward between in-person and online. So, you can still get a job here when you're in the country, and you'll just be teaching online versus in person based on like the current situation. So leave a comment below if you have any questions, and reach out to us at ninjateacher.com if you want help with getting started teaching English in Vietnam when it's possible, or another country. And make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more videos about life in Vietnam. And I'll speak to you soon. Peace.